What's up YouTube? Making another video here. It's an update on my custom 18C. So I never made an update video, at least I don't believe I did. But a while back, the selector base plate right here, that little piece right there snapped off, which happens quite often. So what I did was I found a buyer, or a seller actually, that was selling a Boneyard 18C. As you can see, it's kind of in the background. This is it right here. It's what's left of it. I completely stripped it out for parts. It's probably going to be just a parking because the frame is completely destroyed. Both the screw posts are cracked. The slide is pretty worn, and I'll get into why that is. Put this to the side here. This guy, according to him, his friend was shooting CO2 out of it, and I don't know why you would shoot CO2 out of a plastic Japanese gun, but you know, people do weird shit. But it came with a magazine, although the magazine has been replaced with the WeTech base plate, so I gotta get rid of that and get a new base plate. And it's also, the follower is broken at the bottom too, so I need to get a new one of those. But other than that though, I got the gun working again. I replaced the pin because it was starting to get old. I replaced the selector switch because that was also getting old. I had to replace a few parts. I replaced the trigger because right up here, the little piece right there broke off, and now the gun's pretty, honestly, the gun internally looked pretty new. It doesn't look like it was used very much, not a lot of mileage in the gun, but the externals were pretty bad, so the frame isn't too bad. There's not too much abuse, but you can look, there's some kind of chipping and stuff here at the very bottom. There's a lot of chipping. I feel like the original owner dropped the gun. He said he got it second hand, so that's probably why, but the main damage points are on the slide, so let's take a look. This is kind of like a video to just touch up on this, but it's also useful to see if a gun's been abused. So right here, right there, there's some scratching, so he either placed it down on concrete or dropped it or something. There's a lot of chips and dents and warps in the slide, but that could have been from shooting CO2, but I know that the dings on the slide weren't from CO2, but so I had to replace. So long-term effects of using a duster gas gun and propane for so long. So what I had to do was, for a few things, I still need to replace the hammer assembly, because right there, the small rail crack, that doesn't really affect the gun's functionality though. And right up here, it's cracked right in there as well. You can see that, but it still works fine for now. Right here, this piece right there that holds the selector switch, the little arm in there, that usually snaps off as well, which is shitty. The spring, right here, the hop-up unit likes to break a lot right around here. This one's already cracking, as you can see right there, but it's still holding on, so hopefully it lasts a little longer. This side's fine though. But I also replaced the recoil spring because this one was tenser, which makes sense because I've been using mine for a while, 4 years I think. The front rail in this is still fine. It's still in good working order. So is this slide stop. Just give me a second. But the slide lock is still in good working condition. The full auto sear is also stock. I kept what I had to keep stock because this is rubbing against a CNC aluminum blowback housing unit, and it'd be cheaper to replace full auto sears than it is to replace BBU, so I just stuck with that. Anything back here is all aluminum besides the hammer. That's still the KM steel hammer. That thing's been through a lot of brunt force and it still works great. I actually have this inside of here. There's a stock TM hammer spring. What I did was I cut off the hammer spring up to the ring. There's a little ring. I don't want to rip it apart and show you, but there's it's a little ring, and you have the two little parts of the spring sticking out. And what I did was I clipped the bottom end off and took part of the spring that was, around the ring part, and I bent it back out to create more tension, and now this can strike. Honestly, it's really tense. I wouldn't be surprised if it was able to strike CO2, but it's a pretty tense spring now, so as you can see, it snaps forward with authority. But yeah, so let's take a look at the rest of the gun. The slide stop is still fine. This is still the stock one. The rails are stock. The trigger, like I said, I replaced that. The trigger bar is starting right here. The trigger bar is starting to kind of wear down right at about here sometimes if I don't pull the slide down enough. it won't engage the trigger bar. I have a spare waiting, but for now it still works as I shoot it. When it stops working, then I'll replace it. But other than that, everything down here is in working order. I had to replace the trigger spring as well because that ended up breaking, but this one seems pretty robust. Yeah, other than that though, I also had to replace the magazine release because right here it cracked, but that's just cosmetics. So yeah, the lower receiver's in pretty good working order. Let me just decock that. And then in the slide, everything else in here, in the back, like this, the semi-auto sear, this one's still stock, and there's almost nowhere. None of it's really angled down. It's a little it's mostly level though. I'm hoping that this selector base doesn't break as fast or at all. That'd be really nice. But yeah, other than that though, the gun is in great working order now. Everything's been replaced, other than the hammer chassis. I still need to get a new one, but as long as it works, it's whatever, I guess. But I don't have any gas to show it off, but I know it works. Okay. Here's a little demonstration. There's some gas in this. As you can see, there's not a lot of gas, and this is a Wii mag. It would shoot better with the TM mag, but so yeah, this gun's been through a lot of brunt force though, and that selector arm right in there, that little piece right here. The first thing I would worry about on any of these is this, like, there's a little bit of a space in there. Here, let me get right in there. A little bit of a space in there. So hopefully this won't break off, because usually it just breaks because of the selector. So I'm hoping that it won't break. That'd be great, of course. But even when it does break, there's a little bit of a piece in the back. Like, it usually snaps at about the middle here. So then part of it still holds the selector switch in, because if it doesn't, this will go all the way back into the up position, and then it'll just pop out, and you don't want that happening with the D10 spring flying out in the pin and all that. It's just a bitch. You can't really find replacements for those small parts. You just have to get a whole new unit. But yeah, other than that though, I also replaced the rear sight screw because that's stripped. I replaced it with an Allen bolt. I sanded it down a little bit so it doesn't make contact with the hammer. It really didn't before, but I still sanded it down just to be sure, because if it's pretty deep in there and it's fine, it's good. I prefer Allen bolts because those don't strip as easily, where Phillips heads usually do. But other than that, it's in good order. I would also, if you end up buying one of these and you put a metal slide, I would recommend getting a WeTech hammer assembly spring screw, because they're actually a little longer. Because with the original TM screws, they kind of wind itself out. Now, I don't like using like clone stuff inside of a TM, right? But it's for functionality, because this really keeps that in there, and it takes a lot more shots to actually unthread it. Versus the TM one's a lot shorter, so then it just unthreads on its own, and you don't want that happening, of course. But yeah, I need to game this and test it and all that stuff. When I get gas, I'll probably post another shooting video. Guys, pray for that little arm there. Hopefully it can withstand the force. If it doesn't, I'll have to figure out a solution later. But for now, it seems to be working order. But yeah, and that arm is like, you can just tell it's black. There's the finish on it. It's completely almost unworn, other than this little spot right there. The rest of it is pretty unworn. It's just black, though. It looks pretty new. I'm hoping that it doesn't break. Usually they don't break on me, but when they do, it's not usually a massive deal until the whole thing breaks off. But yeah, just that little piece, that little bit, can ruin the whole gun. It's crazy. But yeah, this mag works too. It's in good working order. So let's take a look at this one now. I'd make separate videos, but there's no point. So the skeleton sidearms, all I did to it, it's just a Stark Arms. It's a VFC gun. So these ones have issues with the hammer and the rear braking, but with the Azimuth steel hammer, this thing has lasted so many shots. It's very impressive. I also have the AIP steel rotor in there, but everything else in this is stock, and there's nothing that's been upgraded other than the outer barrel. The gas route and the magazine right here is a TM gas route, but all of it is stock, and it's really impressive on how much this gun's taking a toll. Now, I usually would say don't get clones, but honestly, if you're trying to get a TM18C, these things are money hoses because they take a lot of money to get them running good. The only reason why you would get a TM is because of parts spec, but because everything's built on that system. And this one is slightly off spec. It's more or less the same design, but the issue with that is they don't fit sometimes because the hammer's a little fatter. But what's good about this is Azimuth is making parts for this brand of gun now, so you can modify the Stark Arms VFC or SSA style Glocks. And yeah, this hammer has been working great. I would definitely recommend pairing it with the rotor, the AP rotor, because it really works well. I never have a moment where it misses it. It always cocks it back, because there's sometimes an issue where when the slide comes back, it misses the little rotor and then it rides on top of it and causes a lot of friction. I've never had that moment where this missed, because the way it's designed, it always has a little bit sticking up like that. Everything else is stock. I've shot this gun quite a bit, no issues. I do have steel parts coming and waiting if this ever breaks. The trigger bar is steel, which is nice, but then it also wears down the semi-autos here in the slide right here, because you can see it's kind of starting to curve away a little bit there. But yeah, this gun, I haven't had to replace anything else after the hammer. The hop-up unit, as you can see, is in great working order, no cracks or anything. Honestly, a lot of the rails are strong. It's just a lot on this gun. I can't lie. The quality control may not be great, but the frame's strong. Like, just the rails and everything, like the hammer assembly and just the nozzle and the blowback unit, they're very strong. And I don't know what they use, but it's definitely stronger than TM's. But that's given because it's a clone company and they're designed to run off green gas. Other than the hammer, but the hammer you can tell when it's cast and it's cheap. But this one is, definitely recommend the Azimuth stuff because it's really good. But other than that, if you just want a reliable working pistol, because the thing is with this particular brand, it's a Canadian brand, so you have the tinted receiver. Tinted receivers usually crack, because you can see there's a crack right there, crack right there, crack right there. All the screw posts are cracked, so I have to find alternatives to kind of keep this down without moving. As you can see, it still kind of moves a little bit. You might not be able to see that on camera. It's not really moving now, but I also had to epoxy the front rail in because that was also very loose because the screw post cracked. But with the Stark Arms or SSA, the frames and the slides, the frames are really, really strong. Like, they're almost on garter level because I've gotten them before, and it's just really impressive. But if you want a reliable, decent gun, I would and you live like somewhere else other than Canada, I would definitely buy an SSA Stark Arms or VFC Glock, or some sort of a G series pistol from them, and then just change the hammer out, and then you'll have a great working gun. Accuracy might not be the best, but you can always replace it because that's TM spec, and you can replace the hop-up units. But yeah, that's pretty much it on this one. So yeah, that's basically it. Comment, rate, subscribe, and thanks for watching.